What is up, Honey Badger Nation, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of Expert Mentors Live, and we're in for a super treat today. You know, one of the best presentations that I've ever sat in when it comes into, from the real estate space. I remember sitting in there. You guys put on a world-class event, Curt. You took it to a whole nother level and really taking the whole build event and location, just the overall experience. The event was world-class. And I've really fallen into this belief over the last, 18, 24 months that the only reason that you should have any type of real estate, business and utilizing this business as a vehicle to be in pursuit of freedom, to unlock opportunities, and not only opportunities in the real estate space, but also in other businesses. And so, sitting there listening to you, Mark, kind of go through your presentation, and Stasic and I were sitting there right beside each other, and I started elbowing him every little nugget you were dropping. And I hadn't really shared this belief with him or very much anybody else. And he's like, yes. And he's like, we all think back, right? You look back over, the course of time is right. It's always easier to connect the dots looking back. And, 20 years with Kinder this past October. And, thinking as a coach, what would I do to go back and coach us two 27-year-old knuckleheads differently? And I would have coached us on in pursuit of freedom instead of pursuit of status. And, at that time, Mark, we're running and growing and building, and it's like, man, we want to be number one. We want to have the biggest market share. We want all of these accolades. We're fighting Pam and Barry every day. We want to beat them. We want to stomp on them. We want to beat them. But what I would have coached us a little bit differently on have been like, boys, listen, you need to be utilizing this business to unlock opportunities and build additional revenue streams that you're not trading time for dollars. Because guess what? You guys will close 50 deals this month, but guess what? You get to start all over again next month. And when you were walking through your presentation, not only did you change the mindset of, we hear residential real estate, single family homes, but the progression that you talked about in multifamily and then into the commercial and everything that you've done to be able to go from 7 to 100, it's inspiring. And it's so possible to be able to just step back and like, okay, I'm going to use this to help me go get that. And you just laid it out well. I'm just super excited to have you on to kind of walk through that and really share with the rest of the Honey Badger Nation, that was not able to be present in Detroit with you guys. But, Mark, well done. It was one of the best presentations from stage that I've seen in a long, long time.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. When I think back at my career, gosh, it's been almost 25 years now. I look back and, obviously luck has a lot to play with everything. Timing has a lot to do with whether you're successful, I think, in real estate or not. The stars really have to align. You have to be able to float for a while as you're building this business. You're a new entrepreneur, and there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. I got into the industry. I didn't know anything about anything. I got into it, quite frankly, because I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money. I didn't know what to do with my life. And, getting into real estate, it was real estate or mortgages. They're both free to get into. You take a 2-week long course and you're a realtor. So I got in with that mindset that, the barrier of entry was nothing, right? But real estate took off for me, right away. I mean, the first year I made 70 grand, but we're talking about, keep in mind, 25 years ago, 70 grand was a lot of money. I never made more than 25 grand a year. And then from 70 grand, I made 100 grand. So I seen early success in real estate. However, in the back of my mind, I always felt like this is too good to be true. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this again, let alone do more. So that was a mindset I always had. And that's what got me into investing. I remember, I think it was my second or third year into real estate. I realized I got to start building some passive income. And the only way I knew how to build passive income was to buy real estate. But then again, I had a money problem. I didn't have money, so I needed to borrow money from somebody. One of my aunts and one of my uncles each chipped in 18,000 each. I remember they were kind enough to give me 36,000, which allowed me to buy my first house, my first rental property. It was 180,000. I put 20% down. Mortgage rates at the time were 8%. So the mortgage was $1,400 a month, and my rent was $1,400 a month. There was like no cash flow.
Right.
Did it really even make sense? Probably not, looking back. But I did it in the intention of, hey, one day I'm going to pay this off, and then I'm going to be making, after my tax insurance, I'm going to make $1,000 a month. That was the mindset I had, but I was building equity, and the property was going up in value. But I just knew I had to create some other source of income, because I don't know that I'm going to be able to do what I did last year in real estate. I always felt like this is too good to be true. This is crazy. The money I was making. So that's what got me into real estate. That's what got me into investing. And then I remember, after I had the one property, it starts to become addicting, because, you're seeing this money start to come in. I wasn't cash flowing, but I was paying down the mortgage. Property values were going up. And so a year later, I bought another property. It was 115,000. It was in a city called Royal Oak, Michigan, which was a growing city. And this one, it was 115,000. So I needed, 22 grand. I saved up 22 grand, a year later. And on this one, I was cash flowing $300 a month. So that was pretty exciting to me, $300 a month in passive income. At the time, I look back now and think,
Awesome.
I don't know what I was thinking at the time. Then 5 years goes by, and that's when the light bulb went off that this was something huge. This was going to be huge, because 5 years goes by, those values of those houses that I bought, at that time, 5 years later, I accumulated 5 houses within 5 years. I was taking everything I was making, I was saving it, and I was buying another house. I accumulated 5 houses, 5 years. Each one had about $20,000 in equity, because they were going up in value, 2, 3, 4% a year. So in 5 years, I pulled out $100,000. And for me, that was a lot of money. Mind you, the real cool part is that $100,000 is tax free, because you're pulling out equity in the property. So I pulled out $100,000, and I thought I was rich at the time. But it was all tax free, and it was rinse and repeat. I bought another 5 houses with that $100,000. So now I'm sitting on 10 homes. 5 years later, so now we're talking about 10 years. I do that same event again, and I'm pulling out $200,000 now. Mind you, these houses are going up in value. I'm cash flowing $200, $300, $400 from each one, and life's looking great. Then 2008 rolls around, the market crashes. When I say crash, I mean it crashes. Like, values go, 50%. Some are 70, 80%. Like, values just plummet.
Were y'all the worst hit, Mark?
Yeah, worst hit ever.
Yeah.
Worst hit ever. Little did I know, though, it was a blessing in disguise. Ended up being the best thing ever. And here I am, what are we, 15, 16 years later. And I pray for this same thing to happen again, but I don't know.
I don't know if that's going to happen. But
yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. People got way too much equity today, but in 2008, nobody had equity. There's a whole appraisal kind of scam thing going on, where people were just, buying homes, inflating appraisals. And, we had that financial crisis that, again, it's crazy, but anybody that has money now, and now that you see what happened in 2008 and where we are now, if you have money, you should be very excited about a market crash if we were to ever get that opportunity again. I don't know if we will. Maybe sometime in our lifetime. History has a way of repeating itself.
Yes,
so
it does.
I have a feeling that one day we'll see it. It'll probably be when we're not expecting it. That's usually when the biggest opportunities arise. But every disaster, in my life, what I realize now is anytime there's a disaster in the world, it's a huge opportunity for somebody. Maybe
So
not for that person, but for somebody, it's a huge opportunity.
it's a huge opportunity. So Mark, I want to pause right there because I want you to touch on this, because this is, the whole mindset and the mental aspect around things. One thing I wanted to ask you, too, the relationship with money and the struggle that some people have and some people don't. And, for you, what was that relationship? Was it learned? Was there a mentor that kind of showed you the way and how to use money? Because, we're sitting here, we're talking about this and everybody knows, yeah, man, that's great, but they just don't have the action, or they don't have their scarcity mindset when it comes to money versus abundance mindset with it, and understand how money really works. Can you kind of, for you, just kind of real quick, what was that process, that learning process for you, and what money meant to you before getting to this point in your life?
I grew up with, my parents always had money problems. We never had money, right? So it was always that scarcity mindset, protected. I grew up, with the mindset, save, save, save. My dad was always, very conservative. Save your money for a rainy day. Don't get a lot of, and we're going to talk about this, but you don't want to over leverage yourself. You don't want to have a lot of loans. Pay the loans off as soon as possible. That's what I grew up with. And that was my mindset. When I started buying these houses, I was, trying to pay them down. It was just complete opposite mindset that you should have, but I didn't know any better. But like I said, I just felt like the industry in general, was just too good to be true. So I had to create some other income source was my goal. I didn't really know what I was doing or what I was creating. All I knew was I needed to create something else in case I don't sell any more homes next year. I always had this mindset, like, I'm not going to be able to do this again. This is crazy. I just made 100 grand. I made 150 grand. I made 200 grand, then 300 grand. It was like, this is never going to happen again. But that's the mindset I had. So like I said, that crash happens in 2008, and little did I know, I accumulated between 2008 and 2013, or 2008, 2012, 43 houses. 43 houses. But mind you, these houses that were at one time, okay, $200,000 are now going for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So I'm going all in. I mean, these houses that I paid, $150,000 to $200,000 are on sale now for $50,000.
Yeah.
$60,000, $70,000. So I'm trying to buy everything I can during that. But I only have so much money. I can only get so many mortgages. You're only allowed 10 mortgages. So I'm buying some cash. I'm pulling mortgages on some. I'm refinancing what I have. I'm just going all in because I didn't really care about the value of the house. People always say, when I compare it to the stock market, and I say, stocks go up and down and you get no residual income from the stocks. People try to compare that to real estate, and they say, well, the houses could go down in value just like a stock. Yeah, but when you're in the rental game, you don't care about the value, right? You still get the same rent, meaning rent doesn't go down because the price of the house got cut in half. The two don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So my values did go down on my houses, 50%, the ones that I bought, but my rent didn't. In fact, my rent went up because people couldn't buy homes at the time, so they were renting. So people were lined up to buy the properties. The properties that I had.
Yeah.
So the value of the property, it didn't matter. That was the eye opener in 2008 was these values going down, but rent's the same, if not up. This is foolproof, meaning I don't care what happens to the value of these homes. If they go up, great. But for my game, which was cash flow, it didn't matter. So I accumulate in 2008, 2012, 43 houses. And again, at this point, I still don't really know what I'm doing. Okay. What happened? I said, save your money for a rainy day. That's the mentality that I grew up. However, it's completely, the wrong mindset. Every dollar, like now, today's world, I got money sitting around, and I'm calling brokers. I mean, all I'm trying to do is put that money to work. Cash is trash. You've heard that saying. It's so true, man. It's just sitting around doing absolutely nothing except losing money. I mean, the value of the dollar just keeps going down. So if your money is just sitting in the bank, you're actually losing money. In fact, during the last 4 or 5 years, we learned, during one of the biggest inflationary periods in all-time history, what I learned was my wealth quadrupled, while people who have cash sitting in the bank, they actually lost money. Because what happens is, think about the two different scenarios. You've got $5 million sitting in the bank. Everything that you normally buy just doubled or tripled in value, which means if you needed $300,000 a year to live, it now costs you $600,000 a year to live. And you've got this money that's sitting in the bank that you're now dipping more into than you ever have before, because things cost twice as much. Versus the position I'm in, all of my real estate that I have, which is the most expensive product in the world, as inflation kept going up the last 4 or 5 years, my real estate also doubled and tripled. And what happened to houses? Houses went up, 100, 200, 300%. So during big inflationary periods, real estate gurus are sitting back just licking their chops. They're loving this. I mean, they want inflation to just go through the roof. It's great because the products that they're holding is going up. If you're holding a $300,000 product and it went up 20%, you're sitting pretty compared to maybe you have to pay 30% more for an apple, or for a steak knife set. Okay, big deal. The biggest product you have has gone up 30% on a $200,000 asset. So imagine the people who are sitting on millions of dollars worth of that asset. It's huge.
Yeah, right here. And I think this is what you're talking about is from a mindset perspective. In where was the shift for you, right? You grew up with the, save all your money for a rainy day. And typically, people that, wrestle with this and the relationship with money, Morgan Housel's book is really good, right? And he talks about that. He said, listen, you got to understand is that your relationship with money can be tied directly to when you were born. And, were you born in a recession or not? Right. And I would always joke about my dad. My dad would drive across town to save 4 cents a gallon of gas. And whereas, I never cared about it. Right. It says, I need gas. I don't even look at it. I just fill up and keep going. But that could all directly be tied back, to that. And so, your parents are pouring into you, save your money. Where was the mental shift? Like, what was that for you?
The mental shift came years later when I learned that, good debt is your friend. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by some real estate mentors who taught me the way and took my portfolio from where I was at, and we doubled and quadrupled it within 2-3 years. Only because, like I said, I built this, but I honestly didn't know what I was building at the time. I accumulated the 43 homes. I was on vacation with a buddy of mine who's been in the real estate game for a lot longer than me. I remember, like yesterday, we were sitting around at the pool, and his circle is all real estate gurus. Mine wasn't at the time. So the light bulb went off. Mm-hmm. What happened was, he started digging into, what do you got? What do you own? I told him about the 43 houses I had that at the time were all paid off. What I was doing was taking the cash flow and paying down the mortgages, everything I was making. I was trying to pay down the mortgages like my dad taught me, right? Yeah. You don't want a lot of debt. You want to be safe. Pay everything off. You never know what happens. So I was trying to pay everything off as soon as possible. I got them paid off. I thought I was king of the hill. I told my buddy, his name was Dwayne. I told Dwayne, I said, man, I'm good, bro. I don't need to do anything else. I'm pretty much set for life. I think I got, 43 houses. They're all paid off. I'm making clear like 35, 40 grand a month. He goes, what? You're sitting on 43 houses. He goes, what are those houses worth? I said, man, they got to be worth like, I don't know, at least probably 6-7 million, I would think, He's like, so you're sitting on, he goes, let me get this straight. You're sitting on $6-7 million of equity, and you're not doing anything with that money? I said, what do you mean? He said, Mark, if you took that 6-7 million and came into my world where I take my money and I leverage it with the bank's money, that's 6-7 million. You could buy anything you want in the world with 20 to 25% down, meaning you could take that 6, 7, 8 million and go buy 30, $40 million worth of real estate tomorrow. You could either refinance, take that money out, or you could sell those properties and 1031 them so you don't pay taxes. But you could literally take that $6-7 million portfolio and turn it into a $30-40 million portfolio.
Yeah.
And it was at that time that my life basically changed. I was on a mission at that point to take that money, take that equity, and use the bank's money, use someone else's money. And then some would say, wow, that's really risky. No, what's really risky is sitting with one house or two houses. That's really risky because you lose a tenant and now you're paying out of your pocket.
That's right.
When you have, 30, 40, 50 properties, that's actually a lot less riskier than the guy who's sitting with, the one or two properties. You're very vulnerable sitting with a lot less than a lot more. So what I did was I sold 4 houses. I 1031 them and bought a 48 unit complex, multifamily complex for $3 million, $600,000. I sold the 4 houses, got $600,000. Which I kind of regret selling those houses. I probably should have refinanced looking back, because those 4 houses for $600,000 are now worth $1.2 million. That's the beauty, and that's a whole other subject that we'll get into. Should you buy multifamily? Should you buy single family homes? There's a big debate between that, but that's a whole other subject. Which one is better? But I took the 4 houses, I sold those. I bought a 48 unit complex worth $3 million. So I took my $600,000 and bought something worth $3 million. Now, how long would it take before those 4 houses are worth $3 million? Maybe a long time, right? Yeah. But that $3 million is probably going to be, 4, 5, 6 million. It's going to leverage and it's going to grow a lot faster than sitting on those 4 houses. So I took those residential houses that I just showed you, and this is a picture of a couple of the complexes that I bought. The 48 units. One's 48. One on the right is a 56 unit. But I leveraged the money. I started to learn to use other people's money. Then I learned about depreciation after I bought my first one. When you're buying houses, it's on a smaller scale depreciation. But as realtors, we pay a lot of taxes. When I bought that $3 million property, I realized that I saved about $350,000 to $400,000 in taxes that year, meaning money that I would have paid the government, I didn't pay, which was huge. If you think about it, think about this: if you save $300,000 in taxes that you would have had to pay, that's like you earning another $800,000 in income. Okay, because on 800,000 at 40%, you're going to pay 320,000 in taxes.
Yeah,
I saved that money. So people like we heard Trump, when they were going through that whole investigation. The American public was in uproar that he only paid a few $1,000s in taxes, and the guy's a billionaire. They're like, he's committing fraud. He's going, no, he's taking advantage of depreciation. That's it, depreciation. It's hard to explain, but basically, real estate, because of the value, you get to depreciate it. It turns into a tax shelter, a tax credit every single year, and it saves money on taxes in a big way. So even if you weren't cash flowing on real estate, I would still argue you're better off buying a property that isn't even cash flowing just to get the depreciation. Because, it's as realtors, you only have so many write-offs. If you're making $1 million a year selling real estate, you're paying $400,000 in taxes. I did that for a number of years. My wife was always, crawling down my throat. Oh, there's got to be a way. I can't believe these people are paying this much taxes. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I used to cry to my dad. I pay for. My dad would tell me, okay, so in his accent, because he's from the old country. Okay, Mark, don't make so much money then. That's what you do. That was his answer.
Alternative. Yep.
Stop making so much money, then you don't have to pay taxes. I'm like, yeah, Dad, that's not the answer. So, we're back to, getting off the hamster wheel. You've got to create income. Real estate was really just a vehicle for me that allowed me to go out and create some passive income. And it turned it turned out to be huge between the depreciation that I was saving every year. So, my tax bracket this year is the first year, I should say, for 2023 is the first year I paid zero taxes and actually got a refund back. And it's not because I didn't make money.
Right.
Made a lot of money.
money.
Yeah, a lot of money. Multiple 7-figure income, and paid nothing and actually got money back. In the tunes of, I think it was a little over $300,000 I got back. That's that was crazy. But my tax bracket in general, even the years before that, I was paying I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 15% overall of my taxes just because of all the depreciation. So this says I didn't build wealth, massive wealth selling houses. Had I not bought real estate, even if I made $1 million a year, my lifestyle is probably $400,000 or $500,000 a year. There's no way, and $1 million a year, keep in mind, after you pay taxes, if you're not buying real estate, you're paying taxes, is really $600,000 take home. So
right.
You go from $1 million a year to $600,000 a year, just like that, because you better save your tax money. Otherwise, I've been down this path too. I mean, everything you can imagine I've been through. I've been down the years where I didn't save my tax money. And now, not only do I owe the government, $400,000, I owe them $800,000 because the government says, okay, you didn't pay your taxes last year. It's kind of like taxes, like property taxes. You didn't pay your tax last year. Now we're worried about you. So now we want you to pay quarterly, and we want you to pay double. We want you to pay last year, and we want you to prepay this year. So imagine that. Now you go from owing $400,000 to I owe $800,000. Imagine that. That choked the hell out of me. I know a lot of realtors are in that position. They don't pay last year, so now they owe last year's and this year's. Mm-hmm. So now that's coming out of every check, and you get choked real fast. That happened to me, so I lived that. So it's just impossible to create the wealth that I know everybody wants while you're on that hamster wheel and you think that you just need to sell more homes in order to make more money. You don't need to sell more homes. You need to buy more real estate so you can pay less taxes and create passive income.
That's it. Absolutely. No, I mean, and that's what you have to use the vehicle for, right? And this is what I was, alluding to at the beginning of the call, and what Al and we were talking about. I was like, when you have your real estate business and it does grow, and you are going down and having, a team or some type of team with leverage or a mega team or whatever it is, you have to look at that as you're not going to, like you said, build any type of wealth with the team, but what you want to use and leverage your team for is to find you the opportunities that would not be as easily available if you didn't have the team. And not only, with real estate, but it also unlocks other opportunities. There's other business ventures that you can tap into. There's, if you have, the right people. I mean, you can own GC companies, you can own trade companies, you can own these other things because you're doing the amount of production and what you control. And this is what I always tell people is that you control customer acquisition. You're finding opportunities that nobody else can find. And you're finding things that before, by the time they hit the market, it's already done, right? It's been passed over. Nobody even wants it from an investment standpoint. For the most part, you're finding them right at the core. And that's, to me, is the reason why and how you should use and look and think about your real estate business moving into the future.
Absolutely. That's well said.
So, Mark, I know you and Curt have been working on a project, excited about getting into the new year, really focused around helping real estate agents because, like I said, and asked you a little bit earlier, it all sounds good, right? But how do I actually do it? Like, what's this? Like, what's the next step? How do I do this? Like, what's the how to? I hear you, Mark. I'm bought in. Like, I want to do this, but man, how do I start? How do I do this? And I think that's, kind of where the direction that you and Curt are going with. And I think it's amazing, but I would love to hear from you, like, where do you start? Like blank slate. I get it. What do I do next?
Yeah, hopefully we're going to save people a lot of time. Um, we're going to, I think next year, and I think we're going to next year, first quarter of next year, we're going to release a course, an investor mastermind, where we're going to walk people through from start to finish. I mean, it took me 25 years to learn what I'm going to teach people in literally months. We're going to show them how to analyze a deal, where to find a deal. A lot of the stuff that I buy now is off market. Where do you get off market deals that don't even hit the market?
Yeah.
How do you analyze a deal once you find a deal? I feel like there's this need out there for a group of like-minded individuals, people who want to get in the investing game, don't know where to start, don't know if they find a property that they think is great, who do they bounce that off of? Who do they run that by? There's nobody. Like I said, I'm fortunate enough that I have a group of people that we can bounce ideas off each other. We run deals by each other to get a second opinion. Even till today, I mean, I've been doing this 25 years. When I get an opportunity, I still run it by the group of guys that we mastermind together with about investing. I still run deals by them to get their opinion, to see what they're seeing that maybe I didn't see. Because when you buy an investment, you're always wondering, why is that person selling? He's an investor. Why is he offloading? It doesn't mean necessarily there's something wrong with the property. I've sold some properties because they were too small. Right? They were great at one time for me, but now they're too small in my portfolio. They're more of a headache for me. But one person's trash is another person's treasure. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with that property. But you have to be able to analyze. Is this something that I want to get into? With the amount of properties I have some that just didn't perform the way that I thought. I look back and think I probably should not have bought that property. And so hopefully we can save people from buying the wrong property, because the wrong property could hurt, especially if you buy it early in your career and you don't have backup. We're going to show people how to analyze deals. How do you figure out cap rate? How do you figure out your net operating income? How do you analyze a profit and loss statement? Where do you go for a lender? How do you find lenders who are going to finance these deals? How do you build relationships with the brokers who have these deals? Because the commercial world is completely different than the residential world. There's not sort of say an MLS where these brokers have to put these properties. They've got investors that they can unload these properties to at all times. So we're gonna go through beginning to the end, and it's going to be ongoing. We're always going to be there for them throughout their investment journey. And I think there's a huge need for that.
I would agree wholeheartedly. And I think, one of the biggest things that I know you can do for the individuals that get into this circle and get into this program with you guys is change the way they think and going into every situation with their investor hat on first, right? If you have an agent, right, that is focused on motivated sellers, motivated seller data, motivated seller offers, then all those opportunities, they need to be able to quickly look for themselves first. Hey, is this an opportunity? And then if it's not an opportunity for me, is it an opportunity for somebody I know, before I look at bringing it to market? I think if they can just start thinking that way, they can accelerate the process. And man, I had Whistle on here maybe a little over. It was the end of last year, so over a year ago.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, man, he said, the biggest thing that I see with real estate agent when it comes to opportunities like this is that they don't think that they could have any skin in that game because they don't have the resources to be able to do it. He said, listen, you got the opportunity, the money's out there. And I think if somebody invests and spends time with you and you can change their mind and how to look and think that way, it's 10x of what the investment would be just to change their mindset. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was kind of picking at you a little bit earlier about, your relationship to money and how it changed, because just that little distinction, that slight distinction could unlock the whole world for them. And it was just like you sharing your example. You're high on the hog feeder, kick back 7 million. I'm good, bro. Right. And then he's like, what are you doing? Yeah. And it's just it's that moment. It's like, shit. Okay. I'm not thinking about this the right way. And and just what you guys are doing and what you have. And this is why I said, your presentation was so important for anybody out there, because the reality is you can't build a real estate business that's worth anything to sell. Like, I mean, all the accolades that we had out of Lawton, Oklahoma, topping the world for Caldwell Banker. You would laugh if I told you, like, I'm embarrassed to tell you what we sold that for. You would laugh at us. And
I'm shocked you sold it.
Well, yeah. There's a great line in The Hard Thing About Hard Things with Ben Horowitz's book. And if you remember the line in there, you're basically telling them you always have a move.
Yeah.
And literally no money in the bank account and payrolls due. We had to make a move.
Yeah.
And so it's either shut the door or make a move. And you always have a move unless you give up. And so, no, for us, it was the right progression for Stace and Reedy. It was, they had rode through us through everything. And we really turned that brokerage into the test bunny, which was became NAEA, that ultimately became everything, that it was, that they parlayed into EXP. So it was the right move for them. It was taking care of the right people, doing the right thing for them.
Yeah.
But my point is,
John, though, one of the things in that, like Mark was kind of going, surprising that you could sell it because it was becoming a burden and becoming a burden for you. So you had to unload a dog. And I think what people don't understand, because I have people that have talked to me for years, which is why when we started talking about this, the idea of creating a community and doing this was kind of like, we really need to do this. There's just too many people that don't have the answers to these questions. And I was one of them, right? I had the access to Mark, right? I work with him every day. So I was constantly, he's like, are you doing this right? And he started coming to me going, all right, come here. I heard you talking about, come here, you're not doing this right. And it was awesome because that's what he needed, somebody to get there, but he was doing it, hustling in the right direction, thought he had it, but there's always these properties that have to go. And he's like, Curt, you got to get rid of this. And then we're buying another property. I'm doing this one with my daughter. He's like, no, absolutely not. Yeah. That is going to be a really big problem for you. And then I said, why? I'm looking at it like this, right? Because I want it to be good. So I'm looking at the glass half full part. And he's like, that's great. However, this is your problem. It's going to cost you money. You're going to lose on this. So it was a really great lesson. But again, I have this mentor to go, okay, you're wrong. So then I've got people, and then he's listening to me telling others. I'm like, look, here's what you're looking for. He's like, that was good advice. You got to be looking at it this way. So you start finding it, but you have these properties that are dogs. There is somebody to buy every property.
Everything. And I love what Mark was saying. What you're saying is that you never know. They could be unloading the property to make another move on a bigger opportunity for them. You just never know.
Right. It's not a dog for them. That's the thing. It's a dog for you because of what you're doing with it. Somebody else can use it for a different purpose, different reasons, and then you can turn it into
great point.
And it's really amazing. And that's probably the best part I've learned in my 7 years doing this with Mark, that okay, now I know how to do this a lot better than I did. But again, you need direction and you need guides and you need people around you that can do it. And when he started creating that bigger team around him, then it was really easy. It's like, you bounce this off these guys, listen to them. Because sometimes he wanted to prove a point to me because, like anybody, I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, pass them. And then as soon as I do, they're like, okay, boom, boom, boom. You're like, yeah. It's like anything in real estate.
Well, it's the proximity rule, right? You're too close to Mark.
It is. And then
so the thing that just kind of listening in what you said right there at the beginning of that was, it made me think of Rogan, right? Rogan had to set up comedy in Austin, Texas. He had to do it because he could, right? It was one of those things that, like, if anybody was going to do it, he had to do it. Right. And so I think that's kind of where you guys are at. You have to do it. Like, these agents need an out, and building a real estate brokerage or build a real estate team is not an out. It is not an out at all. I mean, you'll just give up. You'll just quit someday. You won't have anything of value. And so I think you guys are at a point in your career and all of the things that you've been able to do, improve, and like, you're kind of obligated to do this. And I'm excited what you guys are putting together and, getting this message out, because man, I think it's absolutely critical for agents in this profession to build something to truly find their freedom.
Yeah. I think that one of the things, the keys, John, is in this community that we're creating, that we're going to open this up for everybody here in the next few weeks. It's going to be really fun, but it's not for everybody. And I think that needs to be important. It's for the people who say, look, I do have a little bit of money and I want to invest something. I want to do this. I just don't know how. Or, hey, I'm doing it at this level, kind of what Mark was doing, right? They may be at a pretty good clip and a pretty good level compared to who they're surrounded by. But the problem is they need to be surrounded by people with bigger portfolios who can say, okay, now it's time for you to take your portfolio and turn it into this portfolio. Like Mark said, he had properties that were income earners. They were really good for him when he started. But then the problem was he elevated his game. And once you get to another level, these become, like you said, a drag. So when you're dragging behind, you need to cut those ones loose. And it's hard for people. Me, I was one of those same people. And he's been really, really instrumental in getting these others to go, okay, look at the bigger picture. It was no different than when I even joined the brokerage with Mark, from where we came from, to do something together. I had to learn how to leverage. And that's what he really literally taught me. If I said, what did I learn more than anything? It was that. By leverage, now you can scale. By scale, now you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was really cool what you said, Mark. So think about your situation. If you had this community and you were looking at, instead of selling those 4 properties, and just like, no, Mark, hang on to those and let's do it this way and still go buy that. Like, to think about that, right? Like, if you had that community to bounce that off of, what that could have done for you in a different timeline and everything. So it's just really, really cool. And like I said, I mean, you guys have to do this. You absolutely have to.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Everybody needs it.
Well, cool, guys. So I really appreciate you, Mark, jumping in here and, unpacking and sharing your story again. Like I said, it was definitely, inspiring. One of the best presentations in a real estate conference I've ever seen. And it's so important. And I think too, it's, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And we had been through this, and maybe I was in just such a reflective state thinking back over the last, 2 decades, but it was definitely timely, and it's extremely timely for agents in this profession moving into the future. So I'm excited for you guys to get this launched. I know we will reshare this conversation out to everybody, and then as soon as we're live with where we can point people to, we'll get the promotion out to everybody that we possibly can, because I mean I just want to shake people and like, guys, you have to do this. If you're ready, right? Like you said, Curt, if you're ready.
Appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome, fellas.
Pleasure, brother.
Thank you for having us.
All right, guys. We'll catch you next time. All right, guys. Thanks.